dominant forms of hip-hop, fin, bubblegum-like, hollow, shallow, stimulating body, no stirring, no soul, which is very, very sad because young people need soul-stirring music.
Yo, what up? Luxurious.
Drums and ammo.
Ghetto. Gifted. Ammbaataa.
It's Ammbaataa, baby.
Check.
DJ Ambush. Another episode of This, That, and the Third. Got one of my homeboys, TAUWOO. He's been putting out some music for the last couple of years. Well, the intro is, I met TAUWOO in front of my house, my neighbor. He was moving in and he had a guitar, and that's when I decided, oh man, I might go over there and help him out, move some of the stuff in. And I was like, oh yeah, you play instruments. That's funky. I'm with it. So we got into it, and we've been doing. I feel like we've been kind of like A&R'ing each other's music, you know, for the last couple of years. Little advice here and there. You just released Patterns a couple months ago, and you were one of the inspirations for drumsandammo.com. I think I told you that at some point.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Okay, yeah, no, it was really like one of those moments when I decided I wanted to start the website, and I wanted to shape it around artists that I work with.
Yeah.
So it was you, Yes Way, the Jealous Guys, and my homeboy named Ricky Moss. So you guys were like my four artists that I kind of shaped it around and decided, like, you know, when stuff got going, I would post stuff, and which I did. You know, when you this was during Eyes on the Shore, obviously.
For sure. Yeah.
I want to get into some of the history. You know, like I want to get it because I know that you come from a family, music family. So I just want to get a little bit into that, and I want to hear about OK Today, which I didn't know about.
Oh
that.
Man, that was a deep cut.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was just listening to it.
Crazy.
That's right there, right now.
Oh, that's old.
To it right now. So I was like, man, let me find out and see what it's about. So give me a little intro,
Cool.
little history.
Yeah, my dad, he's a piano player, keyboard player. He was like really involved with the LA in the 80s scene. Like he was kind of like he was a musician's musician, you know. He's came from Prague, progressive he was like always had like the newest synthesizer that was coming out, whether it was like a Mellotron or an OB6 or, you know, basically whatever they were putting. And those, they were dirt cheap then. I mean, now it's like you can't get them for less than a couple $1,000s, but he was buying them for, you know, $200-300. Ended up selling all of them, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, he was really involved in just a lot of what was going down in Los Angeles and in the studios in LA and in live band scenarios. So that's kind of like, that was the foundation. We grew up in the Los Angeles area in the San Fernando Valley. And like anytime that he wanted to show us a song or something, he wouldn't like play it on the radio. He would walk over to the piano and play it and sing it. So that was just like me being a kid. I was like, man, I'm trying to watch TV, Saturday cartoons, and you're trying to like, play this. So I feel like our norm was just a little different. Normal for me was wacky and weird, and he's a wacky guy and an awesome, you know, just a very creative, you know, you wouldn't call himself creative, but he was a very creative individual. When he had something to say, he always did it in his own way, you know. So I think that really shaped a lot of my songwriting, you know, and my sense of identity kind of always was like, well, how do you do, you know, how do you do what that person's doing, what you love, and bring it into your own world and express it with your own sets of perspective and value. So yeah, it was me and my brother. Growing up with my dad, my brother ended up, he plays bass and can kind of play everything. My dad taught both of us kind of just a really good sense of rhythm. I feel like piano is one of those instruments where you can kind of branch out to different instruments from it. So he taught me how to play drums and taught my brother how to play bass. My brother and I played in bands together when we were young. Yeah, he was always just kind of our biggest cheerleader musically. You know, he was always just like stoked on what we were doing, how we were developing. You know, he didn't really like metal music, but my brother would basically like take these metal songs and make like MIDI versions of them. And because of like the technology aspect and because of like the level of detail, my dad would be like, okay, well, I don't like this music, but I love what, to my brother, he was like, I love what you're doing with it. It's incredible that you're doing this, the level of detail. You know, he was always our biggest supporter for exploring and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of like my childhood in a nutshell, musically speaking. You know, and he would always, you know, we'd go to his gigs and he'd always try to pull us up, you know, when we were young, and like I was just starting on drums, like he'd always try to get me to sit in on like an easy, you know, Beatles song or whatever that was like, and I was always like, no, I don't want to I don't want to do that. Like these guys are really good, and I'm so, you know, new and young. So the performance elements as well, like he was always putting us in front. He was always, you know, keeping us involved in his world and music. When he was raising us, you know, he was kind of a day dad and then would be the night superhero and go out and, you know, play music 5 nights a week. You know, when I was really little, my mom would work during the day and he would be hanging out with us and basically, you know, was our primary guardian growing up. So
that's tight, man. I like that.
Yeah,
It's kind of
pretty wild.
Kind of where I'm at. Kind of where, you know.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
Just, yeah. What a coincidence. Yeah. So in the intro, I didn't throw in like you're multi-instrumentalist and vocalist. So what made you lean to drums? Like, you know what I mean?
That's a good question. So I always blame it on when I was a baby and I had trouble sleeping, like, but until I was 10 years old, I was like thinking too much and needed the lights on and needed the fan on and whatnot. And my dad would always like come in and he'd always put me to sleep, but he would be like playing little rudiments on my head, like to put me to sleep, like little, like this kind of stuff, and tapping on me and doing little things like that. And for some reason that would always put me out. So I always think back and I'm like, it's that, like, that was why I liked drums, you know, because he would always just be like tapping little rhythms and stuff and it would always put me out. But I think the other part of it is like, he's really good at piano and I never wanted to play it because he was so good at it. Like it was just like the mountain was so high. So I feel like drums was my way of kind of, you know, finding my identity in our family. You know,
kind of you get in that position in your family that was kind of open. You're like, oh,
exactly.
Open.
Yeah. I feel like my go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, I was listening to Questlove interview and he was saying the same thing where he became a drummer just by like happenstance. Like his dad was had a band and one of the drummer got into a car accident and then Questlove was a kid and just kind of threw him in the middle of it and he became like the drummer. He
just had to fill it.
Yeah, straight up. So it sounds like it was kind of like in the same zone where you seen Pops was doing his thing and then your brother was doing his thing. So did your mom, was she artist or?
She was a writer and a graphic design artist. And she would draw and she had all these, you know, when I was growing up, she had all these just books of art and stuff that she had done, like scrapbook and just different like lines and stuff that she had like fleshed out that I don't know if she ever really like put that stuff to use, but those are my strongest memories. She was like between her and my dad, she was way more of the creative, like when we'd ask her what the difference between a freeway and a highway was, she'd be like making shit up off the fly, like, oh, the freeway, you can be free to blah, blah. And the highway is like, oh, you go so fast. You know, she was doing that like constantly in this creative mind. She saw the world through this crazy lens. So she wasn't musical, but she was a dancer and a graphic design artist and just a like creative through and through. So I think like my dad being like, this is the way, this is perfection. You know, he was like the sharpshooter, like musician's musician, but wouldn't call himself a creative, although like he'd be playing solos every time he'd be playing. And I'd be like, that's that's insanely creative. Like, you're not even thinking about it and you're just ripping a solo. And he's like, oh, it's just, I was like, but anyways, my mom would call herself the creative. My dad would call himself like more of a technician, more of an engineer. So I think like the two of those really helped me as a songwriter because it allowed me to kind of sit in a middle, you know, balance point and just explore creativity, but also explore different instruments. And, you know, having this like, I don't know, it's kind of like a chronic boredom that runs everything. Like if I get tired of it, maybe I'll switch from, you know, music to like video editing or something like that, but something to like make sure that like that creative stimulation is constantly being accessed. Yeah.
And I didn't know you did photography, or you're into photography.
Oh yeah, that's you. I mean, that was like probably my favorite class in high school was photography. That class actually like helped me also with my songwriting, looking back on it. Like my photography teacher said that like he felt a lot of nostalgia from my work, and he also called me like, oh, like the king of contrast. Like those were two, like I got a little like silly award at the end of the, you know, we all got awards for different things, and mine was like for for contrast and for nostalgia. And I feel like those words really stuck with me, and it was kind of like the beginning of understanding how I looked at the world and my perspective and whatnot. And that I feel like is very tied, especially with Patterns, the last album. There's this huge sense of nostalgia with COVID and the doors being shut, and this like longing for what was, and processing all of like everything. Like it was like hugely important to sit in that place of nostalgia, I think, for me. But yeah, photography was I loved film photography. When digital came around, I didn't like it as much, just because I think, and then, you know, like as Instagram came about and filters came through and stuff, it was like I felt kind of obsolete in photography. I felt like I didn't really I feel like I had a voice in the dark room because it was a really physical thing. And you know, you would do like bulb exposures and stuff, and you wouldn't know what you were going to get. So I'd be playing with, you know, lighters and little figurines and trying to create little scenes with bulb exposures and stuff. And it was just this really like physical process, and then going into the dark room and then like deciding what filters you want and how you want it to pop and how you want to layer two photos on top of each other. Like there was just like, it was a really cool physical creative atmosphere. And yeah, I think that was like my true love for photography.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Well, I don't mess with it anymore. I mean, I shoot shit on my phone and I'll go up into the woods.
But I mean, you're kind of into the video stuff. You know, you're getting your small, you know, video clips and throwing the music with them. So that's kind of like, for sure. That's kind of like bringing it all together.
Definitely. Yeah, it's like, honestly, like cooking's the same way. You know, it's like there's a few things in this world in which they all share the same, like that same creative flow, where you can take your lens to it and it'll challenge you and bounce back, you know. And like cooking, videography, photography, like art, like painting, and then like music, I feel like all share a similar like just that flow state that you're looking for. So I'm like surfing for me has that same thing too, where it's like you don't know what you're going to get until you're with it, and then you're just trying to hold on and stay in the zone, you know, to stay like inspired, you know what I mean? Like it's all very like parallel. for me. But yeah, I just like that state. I'm just like I get high off that flow state of trying to achieve it and stay on. I feel like it's just like, I don't know, like good for the ego. It's humbling in certain ways to be slapped back down by nature. You know,
Yeah, like
every sense of that.
put you back in check. Like, okay, yeah, just remember, that's real. So I mean, you kind of got into one of my like later things is like I kind of try to figure out what's that other thing you have besides the obvious, music, and it sounds like surfing is your one of your things that you're really into. Is there anything else besides surfing which you kind of just broke down? Is there anything else that's kind of like a little under passion, something,
I mean, I love cooking. I do. Like, I don't do it enough these days, but I really do
Mhm.
I love cooking. My dad he was always like, "Oh, you could do, you could be a chef, blah blah blah, like do
Yeah.
whatever you want, blah blah blah." Like, And I just, again, it's like that, but it's like it's kind of the same state. So I don't know if it's really like a true
Yeah, I got
secondary, like strength.
Mhm.
It feels to me like the same place, but I don't
Mhm.
know. It's a good question. Oh, I was big in like I don't know, like marine biology. I loved marine biology.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a super weird one, but that was like one of my favorite classes in college. I was just like going down to the beach and our teacher telling us that like all of these little creatures are clones of one another and they're in this huge like and then like learning about all the ridiculous Greek, Latin names for everything. I don't know. I was just obsessed with it. Yeah,
Damn.
pretty weird.
Do you feel like those things make it into your music? Like, do you feel like like some of the surfing philosophy or any, do you feel like it makes its way in there?
Definitely. Oh, I think it's I work out a lot of my lyrics when I'm surfing. Like surfing for me is like coming to a blank canvas and allowing your thoughts to sort of spill out onto it. Sometimes it's pure chaos and insane. Sometimes it's anger. Sometimes it's, this, that, or the other. But like a lot of times I'll have a melody in my head coming into the session and it'll just be ruminating just over and over and over again. And a lot of times when I'm out in the water, because it's this big organic blank canvas, things tend to like calm down and work themselves out lyrically.
Wow.
Um, so
I can
yeah, it's
imagine it.
definitely a part of the process. What's that?
No, I could imagine it because you at that point, it probably if it's ruminating in your head, it probably feels like a big deal. But then when you get in that
Right.
water, you realize how small, you really are in the whole thing.
Seriously.
And you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, it's really not, let me come up with something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So when did you get the idea of like really pursuing music? Because it sounds like growing up, it sounds like you were trying to figure your way out, or not way out, but how you were gonna exist in music
Yeah.
within your family. And that could, I mean, I've seen, you hear stories of people, if that pushing people away from it. Like if you have a musical family, or
Yeah.
if you have a lot of um, influence, it could either, pull you in, or, you know,
Yeah.
pull you in or push you away. So when did you come to the conclusion that you were going to really kind of pursue it?
Yeah, it did push me away. One like from 15 to 18, I think I didn't want that kind of a life. I wanted more of a structured
Mm.
or like I just wanted a more, I always felt so different because of it, because of that. And looking back, obviously it's like what makes me me. And like, but during that time it did push me away. I didn't really start playing in bands and such until 16, 17, 18, like pretty late, I guess, in the spectrum of when you get into playing music with with friends or bands in
Mm.
school and stuff. But yeah, I guess I left for college and it was still like, I don't know. It's like I was playing in band. I was playing in cover bands and songwriting all through college and whatnot, but I didn't really take it like this is what I wanted to try and pursue. I never wanted to like, I don't know, like merging the two worlds of trying to pursue something for money was always like a really difficult juxtaposition, you know, like especially wanting to stay in that creative flow state. I felt like the business and the money element of it was always so like,
It could
I don't
hinder.
know,
Mhm,
totally. Yeah. Early on, it was really black and white in that way.
mhm,
Now I see it like it's a big organic machine in which you have all these different compartments. Music, like for me, is like this big, there's just so many different, you know, like you learn to protect yourself by cutting it up into all these things. And like you have to put your business hat on. You can be in that lane within yourself, you know, and get it done and push in that way, and it's not going to exhaust from the
mm,
other the creative, you know, segments of it. So like I've learned that you can achieve both states. You know, it's not one way or the other. You're not like selling out, selling your soul. It's like you just have to create a vessel in which you can, you know, hold on to different things at different times and be like, you know, this, you know, like,
mhm,
so yeah, I guess I started really taking it seriously. So I went to school up in Santa Barbara, and was songwriting and playing music with friends and whatnot. But then after that, I left to live in Costa Rica for about a year. It was like a surf, find your soul sort of
mhm,
experience. And I went out there not, you know, with the guitar and doing some songwriting, but out there I met a bunch of people in this little town in Santa Teresa that were all musicians, and they were like from all over the world and stuff. So it was this constant stimulus from everywhere of different ways, and like I was just it was like this constant learning experience. I ended up playing with like 3 or 4 different groups.
mm,
When one of them was a gypsy band in which like there was a dude from Wales and a percussionist from Israel, and the singer was from El Salvador. And I was singing words I didn't understand, and like every night it was like a new song would be introduced or whatever, and then
mhm,
I would go, you know, the next night over and play a little, you know, open mic and work out some of the acoustic singer songwriter songs, you know, and just like go out there and play that. And then I would go, you know, the next night would be like playing with the French and American group that wanted to be like David Bowie and shit.
yeah,
And so we just do like surf rock covers and stuff like that. And
mhm,
so it was, and then you know, it's like, and then meeting guys that played. So it was just like this constant stimulus. And I wasn't looking for it. I just kind of fell into it. And that's kind of like when I had that big realization that it's been under my nose the whole time. I've been fighting it.
mhm,
I've been fighting this natural state. I've been like trying to be like, oh, like, what am I? Like, who am I? And it's always just been here,
yeah,
you know, and finally getting there and being broken down and, you know, pretty much only surfing and playing music, you know, like having the ability to just, you know, say fuck it and get stoned like the other times, and allow things to really like blossom and blob out. And you know, that's when I think I realized that's when I wrote a lot of the songs from
oh,
Okay
okay,
Today.
okay, oh,
Yeah, that was like when I was working out stuff out in Costa Rica,
mhm,
and I came back and just realized that it's not like I realized what I wanted to do, but I realized it was the thing that would sustain me for the rest of my life. You know,
mm,
I knew then that this is that anything else short of being involved with music, I just wouldn't be passionate about in the way that it would like force me to, you know, keep pursuing and growing and stuff.
so you had your dad and your brother. You did the pretty much the project together, right?
Oh yeah,
You
yeah, it's
play. I
crazy.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so how did that come together? Like, was that a decision you made like as you were writing, or did you get to a point where you're like, man, this is the moment for me to like pull everybody in? You know?
Yeah, I think I got it as far as I could as me and
Mm,
realized that it should be better for the sake of the songs. And I think yeah, it was like, I think when I was out in Costa Rica, I was writing and got them as far as I could. And I don't know, like my brother and my dad, we had played together. Again, like my dad would try to pull us up, and it would be me and my brother that would sit in on a song sometimes, and we'd be playing with my dad. You know, it's like there was this like element of that existing, but I never really, I guess I never really called it my own. It was always my dad pulling my brother and I into the situation. So I guess like for me, that album was like,
I'm pulling you in.
Yeah, pulling you in, and like this is the, you know, like understanding the relationship really from my perspective. I guess I gained a lot of perspective out in Costa Rica of myself, about what I really wanted, and before that, I think I was doing a lot of what other people were saying was what you were supposed to be doing, you know. And I think after Costa Rica, I came back and was just really thinking about what I wanted and what I wanted to be doing. And so, yeah, so like they're obviously like, they're my blood and they're the closest to me. So I couldn't hear anyone else like
straight up,
enhancing the songs, you know. And then I'd send it to my brother and he'd send like the first thing back and I'd be like, it's perfect, it's great. Like no question, you know. My dad would be like, oh, I'm gonna take a couple takes on this, and we'd get in the garage together and he would run through it. I'd be like, second take, like the whole thing, like perfect, like so
that's
yeah.
So after you release the first project, what came after that? Did you start, you know, was it like shows, or did you just kind of like, here goes the project and I'm gonna, you know, I don't know, what came next after you released your first joint?
Yeah, I don't know, I didn't really take it seriously to the point where I wanted to like put a band together and support it. I kind of would still play the songs out if a friend or whatever would ask like, oh, do you want to come open, you know. It would just be me and an acoustic guitar playing the songs. And so I didn't really like sit into it like in a music, you know, in like a musical artist, profession, like artist sense. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I at that point I was playing also with my brother. I was playing drums and he was playing bass in a band called Gaviota. It was like this kind of like rock. So I think I was way more involved in that, and we were playing shows, you know, around the area where we grew up, and you know, random bars and such. And then yeah, that was kind of, oh man, I guess, yeah. So I'm kind of getting my timeline all mixed up. So coming back from Costa Rica, I was about 22 or 23, and that's when we moved to the Bay Area. Oh, okay. And then that's when you came down and helped us move our couch into the house. Like that was the moment. And at that point, I think I had, when I was in Costa Rica, I knew that I wanted to do music. And then when we decided that we were going to move up to the Bay Area, I knew that I just wanted to do whatever I could to support that passion in music. And I started looking at bands. I just like Craigslist in San Francisco and Oakland, just to like see what was going on. Dude, there's so much. There's like 500 posts a day of people looking for, you know, and most of it I was just like, man, I don't want to play that. Like most of it was really uninspiring. It was really like exhausting. And then Jen came across this surf something out, you know, project looking for a singer. And I kind of was coming into it thinking that I was going to be playing drums, and then kind of making my own band or something, coming into the Bay Area. But then it kind of fell into place, and I met Kahan and Antrim, the, you know, co-parts from Eyes on the Shore. And then, you know, Kahan got me a job, you know, working at Zipcar to basically just support our schedule and our lifestyle. And we started meeting, you know, 4 days a week, and really started workshopping all this stuff for Eyes on the Shore, which became, I would say that's like the first project in which I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm going to put everything that I have into this. Like, I want this to be good. We're going to put money into everything, like into our instruments and into mixing and mastering and whatnot.
Heavy duty.
Yeah. But but my own songs kind of like they were still like sidelining and going with it at the same time. Like I was still constantly writing and learning to produce and all that stuff. So it was kind of like all moving, you know, simultaneously. But Eyes on the Shore definitely became the directive, and all things were supporting, you know, supporting that project.
Do you feel like because it feels like the drumming, it feels like maybe your personality connected to drumming for a minute or for a couple of years, and then eventually, like, because I don't know, like, do you feel like drumming or like piano keyboard playing, is that a certain personality trait that locks into different instruments?
Definitely. I think I'm a drummer in every instrument that I play. You know, like for me, it's all about rhythm, and it's all like that's the most important thing. Like, so when I write as a vocalist, it's always it's always rhythmically oriented. So I think that personality, like I came with Eyes on the Shore, they were looking for a singer, and they got a drummer. Basically, you know, we started like when we met up, I was on drums while I was writing vocals and stuff. So I think that like that drumming personality, I've always wanted to be, I don't know, like part of me, like there's the layer cake, you know, like you have the drums, which is like the rhythm and like the bass line of everything. And then all of your instrumentation stacking up to that, rhythmic and melodic instruments. Then you have like vocals at the top of it, which is like the most, you know, you can yell off the cliff, like it's your most expressionate like sense of self. So I always wanted to be like in the background, you know, but like able to express myself, but like not like the focal point whatsoever. But then I always had this side of me that wanted to be like, oh, but I've got all these ideas, you know, I've got these ideas. I just want people to hear these ideas. So I think I've always been.
I think that's like, I mean, like DJing is kind of the same thing. You know, the way I looked at it, like I always saw the DJ as kind of like the foundation. Like this is a show, like everything is happening, but then you might have the artists in front that were doing their thing. And then eventually it became like, once you start producing and you're like, oh man, you should do it like this. You should do it like, okay, all right, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're like tripping into the spotlight. Like,
get out the way. Let me do it. Let me just show you how to do it. And then then it becomes like, oh, now I'm rapping. You know what I mean? But it really did start from that position of like, let me just kind of support the mission. And then outside of your family, who was one of your first people to really bet on you and be like, man, I believe, I hear what you're doing, I hear something? You know, I'm like, who outside of the family?
I mean, it's probably Jen, my wife, but now, but I mean, she's kind of family, so it's like not, you know, like, but she, I mean, when I was living in Santa Barbara, she was the one pushing me to go to open mics. You know, I'd just be playing songs and whatever in the house, and she'd be like, oh, this is great, you know, you really need to get out there.
That's how they do that.
You
know, wife trying to like look out for your guy. Like, man, you need to. What you doing? What you doing? Now, Tanya's the same thing. Like, hey, you need a DJ? You could DJ. You want a DJ? Yeah, and I'm like, all right, well, yeah, I'm a DJ. Let's do something. But a lot of keep it real though. A lot of you know, my most pivotal gigs came from Tanya jumping in and being like, yo, you need to do this. I'm like,
just grind, just like that grind mentality. I feel like Tanya and Jen share that in their own. Yeah, straight up. And
you know, like we're in the same ballpark of like, let me just do my thing. You know, I'm gonna do my thing. You know, if it jumps off, then it jumps off. Which, you know, we both need to work on that though. Yeah, for sure. We're both working on that right now.
Yep.
on the Shore. Let's get into that, man, because that was a good era. Like that was right when it felt like it was active, you know, like it gave me a lot of inspiration because that was in the realm of when we had the label Sweetbreads going on, and we were doing a bunch of like, you know, South by Southwest and, you know, CMJs and a bunch of music conventions. So
nice.
I like in my brain, Eyes on the Shore was an era in my life that pushed me along for, you know, whatever the span of the group was. So break down like the makeup of the group and the sound.
Yeah. The sound is funny because I mean we called it like a surfy project, but I didn't hear too much surf in it. And, I mean, there were a couple songs, like probably the song that went, you know, washed away. That one's pretty surfy, and that's like kind of defined the name of it's like justified the name of the band. And but I feel like the sound was really like just what it was, like what myself, Kahan, and Antrim all, you know, crash coursed in the middle, and we all were like had these ideas, you know, it was all very like strong opinions about things, and like that collision of the three of us really kind of like made the sound of Eyes on the Shore. You know, it was Kahan playing his shredding bass, you know, he was a front bassist, you know, there's not too many of those, but he was definitely like, he had the dance moves and like the grooves and stuff. For sure. And then Antrim was like all about just like scenescapes of guitar effects. Like he had 30 pedals on the ground, you know, and he would create these just like these worlds of looping and you know, very ethereal, detailed, you know. So that was like, and then I think I brought a bit of the drum, because a lot of the drum stuff I had written, and then I brought, you know, the vocals. So I was like kind of like the sandwich, I guess.
Straight up.
You know,
I never thought of it like that though. That's true. Yeah, you were the foundation and the top end of it. Straight up.
For sure. And they were the juice and the soul. I feel like that they brought a lot of the inspiration, and I brought a lot of like, how's this? You know, like, how, you know what I mean? Like I would help in the refinement process, and then I was definitely working off of the vibe that we were kind of creating with me on drums, Kaon on bass, and Antrim on guitar. I think that was always our strongest. We would jam and create a lot of our songs that way. And so like finding that dynamic with those three elements was kind of like when we'd like lose our mind into an idea, and it could spin for 20 minutes, and we'd wake up and we'd be like, where'd that 20 minutes go? Like that was usually like, that was cool. Now let's, you know, pull it into the studio, you know, refine it, you know, and then start working on like a few vocal melodies would come up while I'm drumming and whatnot, and I would build off of that, and then the three of us would workshop a lot of the lyrics. I'd be throwing stuff out, you know, all day. You know, 95% of it was like, you know, it was like, but that was that refinement process. I think we were all really, you know, it was a double-edged sword. You know, we were all really critical. We wanted to make something good and cool, and so we were all really critical of each other and ourselves. So we were constantly like, oh, it's not good enough. Oh, it's not good enough. Oh, it's not good enough, and challenging ourselves. So, you know, I look back on that time, it was like grind. So like you said, it was a really active period. I think like it really did embody a lot of work, you know, just workhorse, like getting to know ourselves as songwriters, like just spending hours and hours and hours like workshopping and trying to find our sound, trying to find what makes us special, like where, you know, like it was a constant evolving thing. So yeah, that's kind of like, that was like definitely like the energy of the project. And then like we were graced with, you know, Kevin McCann later in the game, who was just like, you know, synthesizer guru. And he basically just like, I wish he was there earlier, because I think it would have really helped us be like, not get so tripped up you know, and just focus on the music. You know, I think if he was there, because he always just had this great overview of everything, you know, and he would always just like lean into it and make something really cool happen, and everyone would just be like, that's dope, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, like he was like,
that's kind of impression I get. Like he doesn't really get hung up on stuff. It's really like, let's
Yeah.
just, you know, oh, that's dope. Let's keep
No,
going with it.
exactly.
Yeah, not really picking it apart too much.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then we had a couple of really good drummers, or you know, two or three really good drummers through the years. We came out as a trio originally, and I was playing drums and singing, and that was pretty fun. But there was obviously like the limitations on both instruments. Like I didn't feel like I could really give myself to either completely. So I feel like we were all, I don't know if it was, you know, like we were all like, oh, this isn't permanent. You know, we knew then or whatever that like we were always going to be looking for a drummer. Although I was always just trying to stay behind the drum set. You know, it was like this, you know, like they were constantly like helping me and pushing me and refining, and like I was refining constantly and like trying to push me onto that limelight. And I was just like, oh, I just want to like chill and write and think and like and just like be in the zone. I just want to like be in these jams forever. You know, so it was that constant, there was just so much, it was like a rock tumbler, you know, and we all got better at what we were doing, and we all got quicker at what we were doing, but it came with, you know, the costs of friendships and the cost of, you know, it's like it came with some really like grindy shit.
That's right. No, I believe it. So with Eyes on the Shore ending, that introduced TAUWOO as a solo artist, producer, musician, and you did some work at, I feel like, did you do was Zoo Labs right pretty much the next phase of you kind of getting your feet under you? So
definitely
kind of give a little bit of like a history of you working with Zoo Labs, and what is Zoo Labs for folks that don't know what it is?
So Zoo Labs is they're based out of West Oakland. They are they basically are like a residency program for the music, for pretty much anyone that wants to come through. So you sign up, you know, and then your group or whatever, they vet you, and then you go and you live there for 2 weeks, and they feed you every morning, and you sleep there, and then you do like 10 hours of like, oh, what's your brand, like this is how to market yourself, you know, all these different seminars. They'd have like people in the industry come through and give talks and whatnot, and then you would spend like the rest of the time of that day in like a very high level studio with an engineer, and you got to have like creative fun time. So basically they helped you refine and also figure out how to like be a musician in the Bay Area, you know, where it's just like the music industry is kind of non-existent, and the money that you're reaching for often comes from, you know, tech, and a lot of the tech money here. So it's like they were like very like tech minded. The owners were from tech, and they were just musicians that got sick of, you know, being in that atmosphere and decided to create, you know, their own thing and try to support all of the artists in the Bay Area, but also keep a link to the revenue in tech and the mindset of refining your craft and learning to like use social media well. And so yeah, that's kind of the foundation of Zoo Labs. And Eyes on the Shore, we were supposed to go in and do our residency right at the end of Eyes on the Shore. So we had signed up and we were accepted into the residency, and we broke up right before the residency. So Kayan and Antrim,
That's breaking news.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's tight. I didn't know.
It's crazy. And it was funny because like, you know, they got like, oh, this is your music psychologist that tells you all what your strengths are in your group and how you should be working together. And we had just started these like conversations, which we should have been having, I feel like, early on in the band, you know, to really not be wasting our time. But it was funny. It was like at the very end, we started really like receiving and seeking out the help that I think we really could have used, you know, all along. And Zoo Labs would have done that. You know, if we were in Zoo Labs at the beginning of Eyes on the Shore, we would have come out of Zoo Labs and just been like, this is chill, you know, like got this.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so we broke up right before the Zoo Labs residency. Kaon and Antrim went into the residency, kind of like trying to create a new project. And then I basically shifted over and started hanging out with Kevin McCann a lot more, and just like chilling and writing together and not putting pressure on it. And then myself, Kevin, and Jeff all moved into a room inside of Zoo Labs for about a year. We were renting out Studio B. So when they weren't doing the residencies, these were studios that they were like renting out for people to come through and and whatnot. So we ended up over in Studio B for about a year. And that again was like just it was just like a huge moment of like, all right, let's get to work. Like it's active. Like you walk in there, there's just like, you know, Jen Johns is like running down the hall, like, you know, like this is what I'm doing. And then, you know, like Brad, you know, it's like they were just constant. And I feel like there's just every day you'd be running into someone different on their own different hustle, and they'd be schooling you on where their head's at, and you'd be like drinking some coffee. You know, it's like you go to the watering hole and drink some water, and you'd be running into someone different.
That's the
pretty much every time.
I miss that. And I've mentioned that a lot on these podcasts, is like growing up in the Bay and eventually, you know, starting to go to studios like the Hyde Streets and the whatever's, the Grill, and, you know, there's a million of them. But just growing up, like we'd go to a studio for like Lucy Pearl, Raphael Sadiq, and Third Eye Blind be like,
right, 2 doors down.
Yeah, so I miss that, and I feel like music has kind of
based
been,
on that.
Yeah, kind of hurt. The industry's kind of been hurt by the fact that a lot of studios have been shut down, and that kind of facilitated a lot of the cross integration or whatever, you know, the fusions. A lot of fusions happen from people sitting, you know, playing pool at a pool, you know. Oh, dude, what do you got going? Oh, we're in studio, whatever, come through. Digital Underground is over there, or, you know, it'd be whoever. So just hearing that happen in Zoo Labs is good, just to hear that still is even going on, because that's just
I think like I agree. It's super disheartening. It's like sad. Like that's one thing that like it's a relic and a diamond that, you know, it's like I feel like it's so ingrained in the creation of music, is bouncing off, especially when you're bouncing off someone that doesn't usually listen to your music or your type of music. Like often it was those moments that are like the most telling. It blows you out of your own world, and you can really see things as, you know, just a normal person trying to listen to your, you know, coming across your music for the first time. So
that's huge.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing, is to be able to get some kind of perspective outside of yourself that you feel like you can really kind of like trust and believe, like, man. So that's, I mean, ultimately, like if you're an artist, that's what you're going for.
I mean, and then you have all these these people, this community around you that you reach out to for different. I mean, you're one of those people for me. Like, that's why when I send you like stuff, it's like I really value your perspective and your opinion on it, because I know that, you know, I know you've got a taste for it. I know you've been through it so many years. You've heard everything. You DJ, like if I can perk one of your ears about it, that there's something there, like something real is there in it. So yeah, like, you know, I've got a few people like that in my life, and you're definitely one of them, where I'm like,
hey, I just remember
if Torrance likes.
I listened to, once I started listening to the Blue Dreams. Is that the name?
Oh yeah, a bottle of dreams.
Bottle of Dreams. I always want to. When I was in Australia, I listened to it and I was like, dude,
crazy.
I hit you that moment, like, yeah,
dude. I got fired up when you sent that. I'm like, oh, okay, you know?
Just man. I'm gonna stick to the TAUWOO.
Yeah,
it will be. He was on our pilot show of our live show. Now we're gonna film it again. and you better catch him. I'm not sure on the timeline when this interview will should go up, but TAUWOO will be doing a live performance, couple songs that that we dig. And all right, so we talked about Zoo Lab. Now let's talk about Patterns, which is your first solo. I mean, as TAUWOO.
Yeah.
This is your first project, right? Did that begin at Zoo Lab, or when did that begin? And how did the process go to get where to get to the finale?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Zoo Labs again was like a time when I would just be meeting a lot of people. So I ended up working, establishing relationships. My friend Patrick, who's a great drummer for a band called at the time Yasu, and he was also playing with Emily Afton, still playing with Emily Afton. But started spending a lot of time in the studio with him and Kevin and Julian, great bass player, and we started writing a lot of stuff. That kind of is another project though that is like, it's called Seams, that we're going to be debuting probably in the next 6 months once we get all the recordings up to snuff. But the TAUWOO project Patterns, really it came into play right when COVID dropped. I started writing, so that was like about March of last year. That's when I mean, I had all this material and I had been writing, like ever since leaving Eyes of the Shore, I just started writing. And I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I was doing a lot of different things in a lot of different avenues, and I didn't know how I wanted to establish myself. And Kevin, he's like, you should put out a project under your name that defines you as an individual, because I feel like the state of music right now is like, people want individuals with Instagram profiles and TikToks. They don't want bands. They almost don't even want duos anymore. I feel like it's like the individual is gold now. So like, kind of how like Hiatus Coyote has Napalm, she's got her own, she's her own person within the vessel that's Hiatus Coyote. And she has her own soloist. It's like her own calling card. So TAUWOO for me was like my personal, in my heart of hearts, the stuff that I feel like defined like my vulnerable space, my individuality. I feel like it and COVID, I feel like really helped define the necessity for it, because I didn't know really how to process. My world got turned upside down and I was just trying to process the emotionality of it, and the songs kind of came alongside with it. So yeah, that the TAUWOO project definitely came to fruition in a time when I was just in a really vulnerable space and needed to really reach out and define myself here to like help myself feel grounded in a time when I just didn't know anything. I didn't know who I was, what I wanted, what I was. Between bands, like I was like, am I looking for another band? Am I creating something? It was just sort of a like, this is who I am. It's okay. I could take a breath. Let me like focus on this. It also came like hand in hand with this music and mindfulness project with my partner NKG, Resonance. Like it's a meditation and along with music, me playing piano and whatnot. And so like Patterns was being developed, but simultaneously I was basically doing renditions of those songs and bringing them to this music and mindfulness project. And it was sort of like,
so you're talking
interchangeable. Yeah, but like the vibe was kind of interchangeable in my mind. It was like, okay, what's like the stuff that's tied to my pulse, or like this sense of this circular nature, like that sense of like when you're in that zone, you could just spin on it for hours, and not lose the space of it. So like all of the TAUWOO songs were basically like a lot of the songs that were meditative to me. Like in my own head, they were meditative. They were there was this ability to trance into it and to feel and allow yourself to like calm down. So yeah, the project really defined itself like post COVID.
So when COVID hit, was it did it take you time to really kind of dig back in music, or did it take you a couple months just to just kind of absorb what was going on in the world, or because there's some people that just jumped right into music and
Yeah.
like, hey, let me just COVID, whatever, I'm going to the studio tonight. Then some people really just kind of took them back, and they needed to kind of regroup, restructure, take
Yeah.
a few months just to kind of get their head right. You know what I mean? How did it work for you?
It was kind of a bit of both. For me, I couldn't meet up with people playing music anymore. I had gigs like booked on the drum set, like backing people up and stuff, and all of that shut down, as well as like any of like the side hustle work stuff that I was doing all shut down. So really it shoved me into this room, that I'm sitting in right now. And then further back, like it shoved me onto my phone, which I ended up, I write a lot of music just in the GarageBand app and shit. So it's like, it really did, it pushed me into it for sure. Like I was creative, from day one. I was like, okay, I'm nothing else now other than a musician. This is what I've wanted, like some space and time to think and just be a songwriter again, and la la la. So like it pushed me into that mindset, but it also like pulled the rug of foundation out under my feet. So I was kind of spinning. I was spinning and needed to like emotionally process, but I was like spinning in this room and like writing songs and shit, like, while I was kind of spinning out. So it kind of was both. I needed it. I needed the music and stuff to really like give like physical, this like grasp of, all right, you're okay. This is who you are. You've known this, like, this is your space. Like, that's why for like a lot of the patterns was written on the piano, which is crazy because I never wanted to play piano because my dad, because my dad was so good at it and such. But like playing piano helped me to feel ground, like pulling like this piano that this is sitting on right now, like schlepping this piano into my house. For me was like pulling my childhood piano into that living room. Like for me to have like a piano in the house was like it totally grounded me. And touching piano and like looking at my hands and thinking about like my dad's hands and shit, like for me it was like very personal.
That's a trip too, because even like, so we filmed our short performance a couple weeks ago at in the house, and it took like, I watched it probably maybe 15 times, and I was like, wait a minute, Corey doesn't even, like, this isn't his. Then I started watching it different. I was like, oh wait a minute, like he kind of, you've adopted it and you really got into it, but that wasn't your original instrument. And it hit me because I was like, damn, he took it in. Now you're singing and playing too, which isn't, I don't sing. Well, I probably do. I sing a little bit here and there, but I don't play the piano. But I can imagine it's a little, it's kind of challenging to play an instrument and sing at the same time. So definitely. I give you props just for doing that. Like you,
thanks, man.
You really, you took it and you got in there and turn it into something you could use. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I didn't want to. Like, it's vulnerable for me. Like, it was like, I'm naked right now. It's just me and this keyboard, like playing piano and whatnot. It's like, it feels very, very vulnerable, like, but like, again, it's like it's one of those moments where it's like, all right, you don't have a choice. You have to, this is your road. Your road is right before you. You've avoided it for your whole life. Like, sit down at the piano, just mess around, go into that space and see what happens, So yeah, it's crazy. I never would have considered myself a piano player or keyboard player. And now I still kind of don't. I kind of consider myself a songwriter that can get by on keys, but I would call myself a songwriter. I would never call myself a piano player. My dad's a piano player.
So just to wrap up patterns, So did you who produced on it with you? Who played the instruments with you? Or did you do everything?
Uh,
You know what I mean?
it's mostly me.
Okay.
Like 95% of it. Kevin McCann he's got like a couple little drum loops that he wrote, like for the song Patterns. He's got like a sweet little drum loop that really like stepped up. And then a friend of Patrick's and a friend of mine came through and played some keys on Patterns, the outro stuff, all of like the circular, beautiful, sweeping synth piano stuff. He's a really great keyboard player. And Patrick's playing like a shaker on Patterns. But then outside of that, it's all a lot of it, some of it that started on the phone and then adapted and pulled into a session and then built out. But yeah, most of it's stuff that I'm playing.
So what's happening right this second? What's the, are you on to a new project? Are you foreseeing some performances? I mean, I know you've done some virtual performances. So what's the deal? What's going on right this second?
Yeah. So yeah, like we've done some virtual performances with the music and meditation stuff out of a place called Shack 15. It's like the top of the Ferry Building in San Francisco. And they recently said that they're going to be, planning to open back up and wanted to start holding events. So they asked me to play my album, and so like for me right now, it's like thinking about like, how do I perform these songs, start to finish on the album and such. And then Antrim, so I'm still playing music pretty regularly with Antrim from Eyes on the Shore, and he's been doing his own solo project, and we've been kind of, I've been working on some of his stuff, and he's, done some guitar stuff on my stuff. So he recently reached out and said that, we might be doing this up in Guerneville, little outdoor, music thing. So yeah, I think my focus recently with Patterns, especially, has been on how to play them out live and how I want that to work. And other than that, just working on constantly working on other mindsets and projects. I've got like I'm about to mix this little 5-song project that like, it's going to be like this lo-fi, surfy kind of hip hop backbeat, but like 60s Doors atmosphere sort of project that I kind of want to like put it out and see. It's got, I don't know, all the songs kind of feel like they have like TV show theme tunes to it. It's like going to be a project of songs that are like vibey and vintagey and TV show themed stuff. So that, yeah, a lot of songs on the back burner that the Seams project with Kevin and Julian and Patrick. Again, once things open up with COVID and we can start getting back together and whatnot, there's like a good project, like probably like an album's worth of material. We want to like just like press that shit out and figure out how to play live music again, which is weird and exciting.
Crazy, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thanks for taking the time out. TAUWOO, what's your Instagrams and whatever else, Twitter, whatever, what's your handles?
Oh yeah, Instagram is @_TAUWOO, TAUWOO. TAUWOO on Spotify. Patterns, yeah, go check out the album Patterns. Just you can look up Patterns and my name should pop up.
It is, dude. Okay, well, say thank you for taking the time out. I'm sure I'll see you at any point of the day.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? This is DJ Ambush. Another episode of This, That, and the Third, Drums and Ammo. I want to say thank you one more time to the homie TAUWOO. Man, thank you. And we'll catch everyone on the next one. www.drumsandammo.com. See y'all in a minute. Peace, peace, peace.